it's not going to go well. It's,
Yeah.
like it's not going to go well because it's a divorce.
Right.
Even if it goes the best way possible, it's still not great, you know?
Right. Right.
Let's bring in Hollywood divorce attorney David Glass for more on this. David,
People going through divorces are going through some of the hardest times of their lives, and a lot of what they're going through is emotional. And in any divorce, there's a huge sense of loss, and loss of relationship, of money, some friends.
Hi, I'm David Glass for the Hourglass Podcast. Our next guest has been on The Tonight Show 8 times, appeared on Conan and Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, as well as appearing in a number of films. Most recently, he appeared in the Netflix feature Mixtape, Apple TV's Physical, Hulu's How I Met Your Father, NBC's Grand Crew, ABC's Not Dead Yet, and HBO Max Love Life. Not only that, he opened for Nick Bargatze, spinning magic stand-up gold with his absurdist views and deadpan wit. He's also appeared at some of the world's most prestigious comedy festivals, including the Montreal Comedy Festival, the Dublin Comedy Festival, and the one in Melbourne. He has a couple of his own specials under his belt, and his comedic bits have gotten millions of views on TikTok and Instagram. His name is Nick Thune. I'm hoping Nick will tell us more about his upcoming special through Nate Bargatze's YouTube channel, which debuts on March 7th. I also can't wait to have him tell us more about his career, how he migrated from Seattle to LA to cultivate his career as a stand-up comic. And we're also going to ask Nick about his humor and how to access a different perspective by using it during difficult times. Hey, how are you?
Good. How about you?
Good to see you. So my first question to you is, of all the comedy projects you've done, do you have a favorite, or is there do you have a favorite way of performing within the comedy world?
I mean, I stand up is my favorite thing to do. It's, it's just unabashed me. I don't have to worry about fitting into something or, I mean, it's really, I guess it's, I am with the audience, it's like almost like we're partners, but I, I like that. But I did do a project called Burning Love that was on E, and then now it's on Hulu, or I don't know where it is. It's on one of the things that everybody watches. But it it was like the cast was just crazy, and I had the most fun and made some great relationships out of that.
Right. So I guess, I mean, the stand-up, you're right there with the audience. You're getting that instant feedback and it's all you. But doing these films is you're working with other people and bouncing off of them. So I guess there's benefits to both sides of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's all different and fun. But stand-up is the thing that, there's no boss.
Right. Right.
Because, having a director and having, or clients, if it's for a product or you're really their little puppet,
Right.
and which can be fun and great, but it's just a different job.
Sure.
Mhm.
Stepping back a few steps, as I understand it, you moved to LA from Seattle when you were first developing your comedy chops. Can you tell us about that transition in your life?
I just wanted to get out of Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
I think it wasn't even, it's, I'm sure everyone assumes it was the weather, but I didn't know any different. And I didn't mind the weather, to be honest. I just needed, I didn't know what I was going to do, or I didn't think I was going to do anything. And when I was in Seattle, it didn't seem like my ceiling was, it felt like I was trapped, and getting out of Seattle just really opened up the world to me. I mean, I think I went on a European kind of solo backpacking trip instead of going to college.
Right.
And that's also where I figured that out. I realized, oh my, it's so much bigger out here. And I really, I don't know. I think that I'm meant to go into a bigger place, and mess around and see. And I never felt when I got here, I think New York would have been different, because New York is just so, kind of isolated into this little area where you just almost can feel the amount of souls that are in the building you're in. You know what I mean? It's just you're just a small little cog, and here it feels spread out, and I like the feeling of Los Angeles.
Yeah, me too. I started as a psychologist on the East Coast, I was in New York as well, and sometimes it felt crushing. People talk about living in New York and the energy and all the people and being able to get around everywhere. I found that many people in one place to be crushing. And when I moved to the West Coast, I felt a great degree of freedom when I first got to LA, for sure.
Right now it's cloudy and misty,
Yeah.
and it's kind of that's my wheelhouse. I like that.
Now, your comedy material often focuses on life's absurdities. Have you ever focused on breakups specifically in your stand-up comedy material?
Yes, I have some jokes about it. I actually did one piece a long time ago on the Tonight Show called Dear Daniel,
Mm-hmm.
that I wrote about this girl that I had dated, and she had a brother. It was one of those things where it was like a kind of a big family, and she had a 12-year-old brother,
Mm-hmm.
but she was in her mid-20s with like me.
Right.
And I ended up like taking him to the climbing gym once, and I went to a soccer game, and this kid was just so great, and
Yeah.
and then we broke up, and I just remember thinking like, gosh, I wonder what Daniel's going through,
Right.
now that I'm not in the picture anymore.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I wrote this whole piece about me and him, kind of an epistle, or is it an epistle or an epistle? A series of letters,
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah.
a series of letters back and forth. And I wrote that like, Dear Daniel, like I'm writing him these letters, but the thing is that they're all letters from me. You never hear back from Daniel.
Right.
And
Right.
it goes more and more from, hey buddy, hope you're doing well, like, this is for the best, and then to the last one, it's like, can you just have your sister call me?
Right.
I mean, and then I made a short film. The first short film that I ever made was called Phone Tag, and it was with this director named Ruben Fleischer, who directed Zombieland and a lot of other big movies, and Superstore, that television show, and he was one of the creators, and it was his first live action thing he ever filmed. And it was all about a breakup again. I mean, breakups for me I've gone through a lot of them, and
Right.
I feel all the feelings, and it's like this whole thing was about me leaving voicemails. It was a similar thing, except there was not a kid. It was just to the girl. It was, it was like,
Right.
hey, and it was just all voicemails, all me calling her and inviting her places. And you kind of see it's called Phone Tag, but
Mm-hmm.
there was no other person there. And
Right.
then
Right.
I have a joke. That I really like that I wrote. I forget. As a lot of jokes, I remember how I wrote them, but I forgot about this one. But it was, I go through a breakup, my first love, which is true. This person named Cindy. And I remember I was young, I was 12, and I got home from school, and the joke is that my dad sat me down and he said,
Mhm.
listen, Nick, if you let a bird go and it comes back, then that's a carrier pigeon.
Right.
And you need to check it for notes. And I said,
Yeah.
but Dad, what about the girl? And he said, yeah, she's not coming back, buddy.
That's great. Great advice. My father was sort of, as far as giving me advice, same way in high school when I didn't make the varsity soccer team and was upset about it. He said, well, I mean, were you going to go be a professional soccer player? And I was like, no. And he said, so it ended early. Move on. And it was just like,
yeah,
that's done. Forget about it. Move on. But I think that moving on, that sort of abruptness and moving on can be helpful.
yeah. It's also one thing that I really like to lay into in my comedy, and I think is a wheelhouse for me and a lot of people probably, is the feeling that you're the first person experiencing something,
Right.
and that this is a unique one. Like, I know that everyone's gone through this, but this one feels pretty
Right.
unique, and it's not. And that's one of my favorite things to tell friends that are going through breakups is like, listen, man, just so you know, like, one thing you need to go back to is that you're not alone, because you're going through the same thing that everyone's going through.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's nothing unique about this. your feelings are real and you're going to go through it, but in
Right.
the end you have to find comfort in that this is easy to get through. People do it.
Millions and billions of people have been through it
Yeah.
before,
Mhm.
and they all got through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
And,
is
and
funny because, oh wait, what's that?
I was gonna say, like, what do you use comedy to try and get yourself through hard periods of your life, whether it's a breakup or a setback in your career or anything like that? Like, what kind of comedy prescriptions do you write for yourself, if you do, to get through tough things?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's comedy. I like the thought of comedy being what I use to get out of the things, which comedy is the thing that I've used to get into everything, in a
Right.
lot of ways.
Yeah.
Um, but it does take a lot to be able to laugh at yourself, and not just, like you think you said something funny, but like you can step into somebody else's shoes and look at you and think that's funny.
Right. Right.
this is this is funny. And one of my girlfriend loves when she can make me, when she makes fun of me and I laugh, because it's I think I love it. And I'm not like a guy that, like, I don't love roasts. I don't love
Right.
that whole
Hmm.
the genre. And maybe it's just because it's turned into something that feels so, it's not what it used to be. Now it
Right.
just seems really mean.
Yeah.
And I love laughing at, if you say a word wrong and somebody's like, "Did you say what'd you say?" You
Right.
know?
Right.
And I know that I do a lot of things and have a lot of things about me that could be annoying, or by somebody that loves me could be seen as fun and funny and something
Right.
that's unique and quirky.
That sounds like it's all about taking perspective and being able to step back, not being so wrapped up in your own thing, to be able to step back and view yourself from someone else's perspective, for sure.
Sometimes I've said things to myself I would never say to anybody,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
I've gotten down on myself. I've given myself a hard time for things that I would lift other people up for.
Hmm.
And sometimes you got to remember that, you got to remember that you are, my girlfriend is, I've said something before, and my girlfriend has said, "Don't talk about my boyfriend that way."
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, okay, who is this guy that you're
Right.
seeing? Who's this
Yeah.
guy? Who's your boyfriend? But yeah.
Have you ever had a friend who was going through a breakup, and were you able to help him or her move on from it, to get out of it?
My younger brother I have a few friends that I've been there for. And I have a lot of friends that have been there for me.
Hmm.
I'm a guy that people come to for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, Divorced, all the things, people are like, well, he probably
Right.
knows what's going on.
Right.
Um, the type of breakup that's like young love, and like, what my brother was going through, it was, I just have certain things, and I'm saying what you don't want to do right now is something you have to do. You need to sit down and write out 7 things that would have never worked with this person.
Right.
7 things that are important to you, that you were compromising, that really wasn't a fit. And you need to concentrate on, put those in your pocket and carry it around, and think about it.
Hmm.
It was like, making a list is something that I really believe in, when somebody has hurt you, or you're out of something, is to remember something else is out there that probably
Yeah.
checks off all of these boxes. But yeah, I mean, I told my brother, I just said, "Listen, showers are the worst. You're gonna wake up. You gotta
Hmm.
face yourself in a closed room that's just raining water, and you gotta,
Yeah.
you know, see your body, and do all of the things that are tough. That
Hmm.
maybe that seemed like a breeze before. That seemed like, you were thinking about your day,
Yeah.
and that you weren't thinking about, and then getting up to the late night at part too. It's like, you gotta, like, watch. I would really watch stuff until I fell asleep when I first started
Uh-huh.
going through breakups, because it was like, just, I'm gonna go easy on myself and not make myself face it all of the
Sure.
day, you know.
Yeah.
So at nighttime, but the only way out is through, and that's what I tell people the most is, really just squaring up and just looking at it and saying, all right, what do we got here?
Yeah, I remember when I got divorced, now 15, 16 years ago. And I'm a former therapist and a divorce lawyer, so you think I would know something
Mhm.
about the process, at least secondhand. But I remember saying to a friend, why do I still feel so sad about it? And he said, well, because it's a sad thing, and this has been going on for a couple months, and you're not through it yet. You gotta deal with it. So just
Yeah.
deal with being sad. Let the tears come. Let whatever flows through you, and then once you're through that, then you got to get up and start moving again.
Really going easy on yourself is the thing. Treating yourself as if you were somebody that you were helping,
Yeah.
which is hard to do.
For sure.
A lot of comedy in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you get that distance away from it, well,
Yeah.
definitely not while you're in it, or sometimes maybe when you're in it. That would be really a special treat to be able to understand how ridiculous it was really close to it.
That's why I write things down too, because years later, I can find them and look at them. And I just did that recently. I found like a list that I had made of somebody that I dated, and then I threw it away. As I briefly looked at it, I was like, oh God, what a poor guy, just
I also endorse that making lists. Again, after I went through divorce and I tried to figure out who's the person I'm looking for. And I did this with the help of a therapist. Here are the 10 things I'm looking for in a new partner. And then I compared that list at 42 to the list I'd written at 25 when I'd met the prior person, and none of the same characteristics. The two lists were completely different. And that stock taking, what am I looking for, really redirected me to figure out who I wanted to be with going forward.
it's great when somebody, I'm like severely, distracted and hard to do things that don't have to do with my work. Like if it's work, I can just sit down and do it. But when you have somebody that makes you do it, that's like why in AA you have a sponsor, or, these programs. It's like you need somebody to manage your time when it comes to focusing on job or goals or whatever. I wrote goals this year for the first time. I've never done it in my life. I've never sat down and said, this is what I want out of this year.
Right.
And it felt good, actually. I think just the action of doing it, whether I ever see that piece of paper again or not, who knows?
Yeah, whether you go back and check it on December 31st, how many of these things did I do or not? Just the sitting down at the beginning of the year and trying to figure out where you want to be has its own value.
Yep, it really does.
Our audience for this podcast is mainly people who are going through divorce or who have just gotten through divorce. And are trying to pick up the pieces of their lives and figure out where they're going. Do you have any special advice you haven't shared already for these people in this unique position that they're right at the end of the divorce or coming out of it?
It's a process, and once it's started, you can kind of ride the wave and make it through. But it's starting it. Emotionally, it's tough because, there's people that want the divorce, people that don't want the divorce, people that are talking, people that aren't talking. And my relationship with my ex-wife is fantastic. Wasn't always that way. And it wasn't always that way because either of us suck. It was just that way because it's a hard emotional thing to go through.
Yeah.
And sometimes sitting back and, what people say, like the hardest things to go through are moving and death of a loved one and divorce, or whatever they say. You got to just sit back and think, oh, I am going through one of the things, one of the things that is described as a tough thing.
Yeah.
And so I need to accept that it's going to be tough. But I also, it's the landscape can be so radically different with people with money and, but the way that I did it was just like, I just want everyone to be okay. Like I gotta think about this person. How did I feel about them when I first met them, and would I want that person to not be okay?
Right.
And no, I wouldn't,
Yeah. Obviously a more compassionate and generous way to go through the process than a lot of the people I deal with in my profession. And I often wish people could take that perspective. Going back, this is a person. Things have not worked out, but why are you going to get stuck in trying to punish that person as opposed to figuring out how to make it all right and then moving on?
I know, and the people that I talk to, that the first thing when divorce is talked about, they talk about money.
Mm-hmm.
I realize like, oh, that to me, it is the smallest part of it. And maybe that's just because I've never cared that much about it, and I have it and I use it for what I need to. But it, to me, it was just like, hey, I got to get through this. There's no buttering this up and making it better.
Yeah.
It's not going to go well. It's,
Yeah.
like, it's not going to go well because it's a divorce.
Right.
Even if it goes the best way possible, it's still not great,
Right. Right.
It's still a divorce. You still failed a marriage,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is, again, that's also not the right way to describe it, a failed marriage. But it's tough. It's especially if kids are involved and all those things. You just got to think like, how do I want my child to be talked to about me?
Mm-hmm.
Which I know people that don't have a good situation when it comes to that. They
Yeah.
don't, and it's not that they are purposely sitting their kid down and being like, I hate your dad.
Right. Right.
It's just obvious. It's
Mhm.
just obvious. And those kids see everything.
Yeah.
They see it all. And it's really, it's funny, like this holidays, me and my ex are both from Seattle,
Mhm.
and we have an 11-year-old kid. And I had booked tickets for me. I had booked tickets for me to fly up there separately, and they had booked tickets separately as well.
Yeah.
But we booked them for the same flight. And because I told her, I said, hey, this is when I'm flying up there, so I can take him whenever once you get up there. And she said, yeah, I just booked the same flight, and so we were at the airport together. We went through security. We were on the plane. It went great.
Mhm.
It went better than it ever went when we were married.
Right.
And
Right.
I was watching my son, and I was just watching him, and
Mhm.
I think that he to him it meant a lot that
Mhm.
we could do that.
Yeah.
And even when
Absolutely.
the fires just hit, her house was evacuated. She didn't lose her house, but it got pretty hairy. And I took my son and went somewhere and to get away from the smoke, and she dealt with what she had to deal with. And but watching him, knowing that he might lose his home,
Yeah.
like, and for 3 days it seemed pretty sure that they were going to.
Yeah.
And you watch a kid swallow all of that and
Mhm.
live through it, and it's just, divorce is the same way. It's just burning this relationship down that
Yeah.
that was their home, that was everything they knew.
Yeah.
you
And
know
beyond that, for kids, they identify with both of their parents. I'm made up of these two parents. There's a piece of me
yeah
that's like dad and a piece of me that's like mom. And when one of those parties or both of those parties, God forbid, start talking badly about the other party, the kid has to take that in. There's a piece of me that isn't right according to this person who's so important to me. It's an impossible place to put anyone in, but especially a kid.
and it will turn that kid against you
Hmm.
in small ways maybe, but it's going to make that kid kind of bow up and want to stick up for the person, and
Yeah.
maybe feel bad for the person, and so then want to go take care of them, and it's
Yeah.
causing so many
Hmm.
rifts in this child's being, that
Hmm.
are just unnecessary.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know what's happened on the other end. I don't know what
Mhm.
I trust her, and I believe that she is painted me in a good light, hopefully, with him. Doesn't seem to be bad, but you know, nothing but rainbows over here. It's just,
Yeah.
you respect your mom. I saw him like be kind of short with her once, and I just sat him down and I was like, that's unacceptable.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not past, you don't talk to your mom that way.
Yeah. Right.
She's given everything for you. You gotta,
Right.
you know,
Hmm.
whereas I think some people would be like, oh, good, he finally,
finally recognizing the shortcomings that I recognized 10, 15 years
Yeah.
ago. That's not the game.
And also, I think for me, my divorce wasn't recognizing the shortcomings of someone else. It was recognizing my own freedom and my own shortcomings and wanting to get through those and over those and seeing the path that was at least resistant and that was going to be the best for that,
Right. All right. Let me lighten things up a little bit with
Yeah.
can you share with our audience what did you do, if anything, to launch yourself back into the world of dating? And how long did it take for you to get back into that?
I have never done a dating app.
Mhm.
I don't look down on them or anything. It doesn't feel like something that I kind of doesn't feel like me, to be
Yeah.
honest, it's kind of the same thing with auditions and acting. It's like when COVID hit,
Mhm.
all of auditions turned to this
Yeah.
Zoom, or taping and sending it in. And I'm an in the room guy. Like,
Yeah.
you get me in the room, I want you to smell me. I want you to see
Mhm.
what I do. I am a personality, and I'm something that if I'm in front of you, it's going to sell me way more than if you just look at a picture and think, oh, okay,
Right.
well, I've seen it,
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think the first person that I dated, I met at a friend's birthday party,
Hmm.
and I went to that party thinking I might meet somebody tonight. And
Oh,
it's funny
wow.
because I dated that person for a while, but I also met someone else that night that was the next person I dated.
Right.
And then again later, somebody else I met that night I dated. To me, my job. I'm out so much,
Mhm.
and I would never date anybody. I know comedians and actors that date fans. I've never,
Mhm.
ever would do that ever. Not that I don't. I hope I have some fans out there, but the the thought of like finishing a show and going out and being like, what do you guys think,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's not ideal, and I really like meeting somebody, especially if they don't know who I am at all,
Hmm.
which is
For sure.
pretty easy to do. I can just walk
Yeah.
outside and do that at any point.
Right. 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 So maybe the call to action is to go to friends' birthday parties, and a good place to
It's
meet your
Yeah,
next 2 or even 3 people you're going to date if you keep your eyes open.
friends' birthday parties, but also just going out. I mean, it's the same thing for me with depression or feeling stifled or writer's block or any sort of feeling trapped.
Hmm.
Is walking across the street walking out to get my mail has never hurt me. That's always been
Hmm.
something happens,
Yeah.
something I see. And walking to the coffee shop, that's what if I knew that if I lived in New York, the walking thing is the thing that I do in LA. I walk in LA a lot more than I think most LA people do,
Right.
because I think about like, well, if I was in New York and I was going to that place, would I walk? It's about the same distance from like if I was at a hotel here and I was going to this restaurant, I'm going to walk, you know,
Hmm. Yeah.
it's, it brings life together. That's how you meet people. I mean, one person that I dated, who was a psychologist, actually,
Mhm.
I met camping.
Right.
I was camping with my son and he was going he was going to the bathroom in the porta potty, and he wanted me to stand outside to make sure everything was going to
Right.
be fine. And this truck pulled up with 2 girls in it, 2 women, and they started to unload into this camping spot. And I said, hey, just so you know, that camping spot is no good. It's going
Right.
to get too much sun. And it's true. And
Right.
I said, but there's one around the corner up there that's open because it's
Hmm.
all free camping at this place. And I said, if you go up there, and they went up and they found it, and they were so thankful. And then, nothing weird happened. I was with my son camping, but kept in touch. And then next
Yeah.
thing you know, hey, you remember so and so from my camping trip? Well, now
Yeah.
she's daddy's friend.
Right. Yeah. And that's all about being open to the experience. It's I've talked to I don't know, maybe over 50 people on this podcast, And the theme that keeps coming up is that people who open themselves up for experiences end up in places they never expected, as opposed to people who walk along with an idea of what they're going to do each day. They don't meet interesting people. They don't see interesting things. They don't get taken in new directions.
Well, and I mean, I'm lucky because of my job and I do have free time to go do that a lot. And people that are working all day and, it's like, where do they go? The gym, and then they meet, it's not easy. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, it's an easy thing. And I think dating apps, that's a great thing for people.
Yeah.
I know some people that have just tried so hard and hate it.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't kind of meet somebody. And I know people that are married that met on a dating app. It is something you got to try.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm always amazed at these interviews, how deep you can go in a half an hour. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking to a filmmaker, a comedian, a doctor, lawyer, or Indian chief. If people think about things a little bit more deeply, you can always learn something from them. So I thank you for sharing all of this wisdom with me and with the audience. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
All right. Yeah, you too. See ya.
Thanks so much for watching. Check back with us for another new episode or visit thehourglasspodcast.com, where you'll find dozens of archived interviews, all of which are meant to help you. Thanks.